Commentators at the Chinese portal Sohu argue that Ukraine is no longer able to halt the advance of the Russian army on the ground. They note that as soon as U.S. Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll arrived in Kiev, he was immediately confronted with bad news. During the night of November 18th, Russian Iskander tactical missiles struck a train at the Krasnograd station in the Kharkov region, where American armored vehicles were being transported. The report specifies that the cargo included M1 tanks and Seahorse armored vehicles. According to Ukrainian sources cited in the article, the Russian military launched 4 missiles, and none of them were intercepted by Western air defense systems. Sohu recalls that the M1 had for many years been a point of pride for the United States, surrounded by a myth of its invincibility. The outlet also maintains that, after a series of Russian strikes, U.S. President Donald Trump concluded that Kiev is not capable of defeating the Russian army. This, they argue, is the reason Washington's support for Ukraine is now waning. A staggering 87% of Ukraine's fleet of M1 Abrams main battle tanks, MBTs, has been destroyed, captured or lost since the series was first delivered to the front lines of the ongoing war last year. According to Military Watch magazine, 27 out of the 31 vehicles delivered to Kiev are no longer in commission. The United States and several of its NATO allies initially pledged to bolster Ukraine's defensive objectives by providing a slew of tanks. In addition to the American-made Abrams, the German-made Leopard and the British-made Challenger 2 were also delivered to support Kiev amidst the ongoing invasion. Although the Abrams MBT series is widely considered to be one of the most sophisticated and reliable armored vehicles in service today, the platform has struggled in Ukraine. A host of issues, ranging from Ukraine's lack of air and artillery support and lack of technical and mechanical expertise to manpower and equipment shortfalls, have contributed to the Abrams' ineffectiveness on the front lines. The M1 Abrams platform is arguably one of the most formidable MBTs of its kind to ever serve. Designed by General Dynamics Land Systems, formerly known as Chrysler Defense, the third-generation tank exemplifies survivability, lethality, and combat effectiveness. The Abrams family of MBTs was conceptualized during the Cold War as the Soviets' armored vehicle potential was advancing. Poland has served as a hub for the bulk of Western material support to Ukraine since the outbreak of full-scale hostilities in the country in February 2022, with the appearance of Abrams tanks in Australian Army camouflage in the country indicating that the first deliveries to Ukrainian forces is likely imminent. The tanks were phased out of service in Australia due to their age, with new M1A2 SEPV3 tanks having been ordered from the United States to replace them. Plans to supply the much older Abrams tanks were first announced by Canberra in October 2024, although a number of sources subsequently reported that a lack of authorization from the United States to transfer them to Ukraine was a major factor delaying their delivery. Ukrainian Army tank crews first completed training on the Abrams in September 2023, after which 31 newly built tanks were delivered as aid by the United States, the last of which arrived before the end of the month. The tanks began to be utilized for frontline operations in February 2024, but quickly began to take heavy losses, so that by late August 2024 losses were estimated at close to two-thirds of the fleet at 20 of the 31 tanks. By early June 2025, the Ukrainian army was assessed to have lost 87% of the American-sourced tanks, with 27 of the 31 vehicles destroyed or captured. Before they began to see combat, the vehicles had been widely hailed in the Western world as a likely game-changer that would provide a decisive advantage on the front lines. The effective wiping out of the Abrams fleet provided by the United States has raised serious questions regarding the longevity of the 49 further vehicles that are expected to soon begin deliveries.
Нашли еще один уничтоженный танк Abrams. который был подбит во время вторжения ВСУ в Курскую область. По подсчетам международных изданий, уже 2/3.
Unlike the newly built Abrams tanks previously transferred by the United States, the 49 additional tanks from Australia have already seen decades of service and are considered thoroughly worn out, which is expected to significantly reduce their availability rates and increase maintenance requirements. Speaking to ABC News, one informed American source with inside knowledge of the transfer warned on this basis that the Ukrainian army would find the vehicles difficult to sustain. Doubts have been widely raised regarding the vehicle's utility, with one unnamed defense official speaking to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation having highlighted their demonstrated vulnerability in particular, stating, "We are starting to doubt if the Ukrainians actually want these vehicles. The tank roof is the weakest point of the Abrams, and this is a drone war."
Впрочем, какая разница, сколько именно? Те же международные издания признают, что Абрамс оказался просто без...
Most of the Abrams tanks filmed being successfully targeted were hit by guided artillery or by single-use kamikaze drones, although one was confirmed to have been destroyed by a Russian Iskander missile. Despite the Abrams capabilities, however, the older M1 models delivered to Ukraine have struggled to survive against Russia's more advanced arsenal of anti-tank weaponry. As detailed by Military Watch magazine, most of the Abrams tanks filmed being destroyed or otherwise neutralized were targeted by guided artillery or by single-use kamikaze drones, although one Abrams was confirmed to have been destroyed by a Russian T-72B3 tank after the two exchanged fire near Avdiivka. Since lethal UAVs are cheaper and more accessible than projectile alternatives, Moscow will likely lean on its drone reserves to continue targeting Ukraine's MBT fleets.
Обшили советской динамической защитой, приладили американцу антидроновый козырек, но это его не спасло. Наши операторы ювелирно отправили дрон «Камикадзе» прямо под башню, самое уязвимое место.